Pretty much everywhere you go online, everyone is saying that for me, it is not worth the upgrade to go from the iPhone 15 Pro Max to the 16 Pro because literally the only thing they changed was the cameras. And that's because a lot of the features on the new 16 Pro haven't actually been released yet. But as a video shooter, I wanted to see how good was the new cameras in comparison, because Apple did claim to make a few adjustments, and so the only way to see it was to shoot the cameras side by side. Now to me, the biggest comparison is going to come from the 15 Pro Max to the 16 Pro, because they both are going to share a lot of the same cameras. The 15 Pro Max is the one that had the 5x zoom, which now is available on the 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max, so you don't have to get the bigger phone in order to get that feature. Also, they both sport a 45 megapixel main sensor, but where they do differ is in the ultra wide. So let's go downtown and test these things out. Now to test them out, first thing I wanted to do was just try to look at image quality. And I started with looking at all of the cameras, just sort of shooting it like any other person would, walking around downtown, doing a little bit of street photography, but really street videography, and just seeing what I could get. A few things immediately jumped out to me. First, I tried using these cameras in a very handheld environment, and the stabilization pretty much stays the same between the two. When you look at the 15 Pro versus the 16, you're not really gonna see a massive jump in the world of stabilization, especially if you're not using a gimbal. Now, when you're shooting downtown and there's a lot of light reflecting off of different buildings, one thing you will start to see a difference in between the two is in the flaring. Now, flaring is what happens when a light source hits directly onto the lens, and it sort of causes a streak of light in your footage. Now, these two cameras handle this situation wildly different, and it also depends on which camera you're using. For example, on the main sensor, I noticed that there wasn't a crazy amount of flaring coming in from the new 16 Pro compared to the 15 Pro Max, but I will say that it was still noticeable. It was just a lot cleaner. Now, you compare that over to the ultra wide cameras, and they both do way more flaring with the ultra wide. Now, the one caveat here is that when it comes to the 16 Pro's flare, it's just a streak of light, no haze involved. However, on the 15 Pro, I did notice a bit more hazing. Now, depending on how you think about it creatively, the flaring could be an issue, but what is a major issue on both of these cameras is something that they do with direct lighting sources. I was actually testing the low light performance between these two cameras, which I'm definitely going to get to in just a second, and I noticed that they both love to reflect light, but it's not just a matter of like reflecting light, it's literally reflecting the entire light source. And so when you're shooting something like fire, for example, they're not only reflecting that light source back into your footage, but it also kind of flips it. And depending on where you have your subject, it can be incredibly distracting. I noticed it was worse with the main sensor on both cameras, but compared to like the ultra wide, I didn't really see that issue. Now, walking around downtown, I just wanted to sort of see a lot of this footage side by side. And what I noticed is that even though the iPhone 16 Pro has a better ultra-wide camera, it doesn't seem to be making a noticeable difference, especially when you're shooting in good lighting. If you're shooting outdoors like I was, I didn't really see a massive difference between the 16 Pro or the 15 Pro Max's ultra-wide. Maybe you'll see a little bit of a improvement in sharpness when you zoom in, but the only time I sort of saw it was when I zoomed in at like 200%, which I would never do on an iPhone camera. This is when I saw a little bit of an edge being given to the ultra wide, but the truth be told, I don't think anyone's gonna notice this. Now, one area where Apple definitely said they made an improvement on this is in the low light performance. So let's jump into that next. Kicking things off with the ultra wide, because this is where the biggest improvement was made. I'll be honest, the ultra wide definitely looks better in low light on the 16 Pro compared to the 15. But the 15 actually didn't look that bad. I was actually really surprised by how good it looked. So in order to light this, I just used my porch light, and then I had my fence lights that are already up, and this is the shots that I got. And honestly, looking at the 15 Pro, it was really shocking. I thought that the 16 Pro was gonna absolutely crush it in this test, but realistically, they don't look too bad side by side. And I'll be honest, I don't know if the 16 Pro really got that much of an upgrade. Now, something new that we did get in the 16 Pro regular size phone is the new 5x zoom camera. And I wanted to see if there were any like caveats with putting that lens in that camera. Now, initially last year when the 15 Pro Max got the 5x zoom and the regular 15 Pro didn't, I figured it might have been a space issue. So in order to put it into a smaller phone was going to be a bit of a compromise. The truth is that there wasn't. And it kind of pretty much sort of confirm my suspicions is that on the 15 Pro, they could have easily put this camera in that phone, and they just didn't. When I look at the two side by side, the 16 Pro's 5x versus the 15 Pro's Max's 5x zoom camera, there's no difference. I can't see a single difference between the two. It's literally the exact same. So it just sort of makes me feel like Apple just kind of held something back out of last year's phone. So what are my final thoughts on these two cameras? See, the truth is I think the iPhone 15 Pro Max specifically because of the 5x zoom and the 16 Pro and Pro Max, when it comes to quality of the cameras, they're about the same. I don't really think that we're getting a huge upgrade this year. As far as I can tell from all the footage, everything looks good on both cameras and they both seem to function exactly the same. So it really comes more down to what can you do to get more out of your image? I mean, obviously when it comes to shooting on an iPhone, yes, you can add in lighting. Yes, you can use pro apps to dial in your image a little bit more. You can shoot log in order to really get the most out of these sensors. But the truth is, at the end of the day, if you don't know what you're doing with the iPhone, you're not going to get the best image out of it, which is actually one of the reasons why I released an entire guide to shooting video on the iPhone. I have a beginner's guide if you want to learn how to completely get the best image out of an iPhone. I'll have that linked down below along with a special discount code so that way you can fully take advantage of it. But the truth is that today the iPhone is amazing when it comes to video. And if you are a creator or you are someone who wants to start shooting video, personally, I think starting with an iPhone is a great place to get going until you're ready to invest some money in picking up a more traditional camera. But if you are someone who's trying to figure out between these two iPhones, which one should you buy? I think it's pretty clear. If you are planning on buying the phone outright, and you're just buying it cash, then I personally think that you should look for a either used or discounted iPhone 15 Pro Max. The reason being is that you're gonna get a better deal on the price because the phone is a year old at this point. Even if you get one used from someone trying to sell it to go up to the 16 Pro, you're gonna get a great price on that, and not just the camera side of it, but for everything else that's happening with the phone, the 15 Pro Max is going to get all of the new Apple intelligent features and all those software updates that the 16 Pro at this point still doesn't even have. So you could literally get a 15 Pro Max right now and your phone is gonna function just like everyone else who's getting the new 16. And the truth is they're all waiting on features and so are you, and it's not gonna be any different. That said, if you do have the ability to pick up a 16 Pro from your carrier because you're available for an upgrade. Right now, they're offering these crazy trade-in values. So if you have like a 12 or 13, you can trade in this phone and save a bunch on getting the new phone. That might be the better deal. At the end of the day, when it comes to the cameras on these phones, I think you could go with either one of them. It really doesn't matter. What it does matter is what can you get the best deal on. Financially, I think that should be the only deciding factor between which one you want to go with, because when it comes to the video image quality, I don't think it's a deciding factor. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think of the footage down below in the description. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know, maybe you're having a different experience than I am if you've been testing these out or watching some other videos on YouTube. But before you guys go, please hit that subscribe button and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.